Welcome on in, everybody, to episode number 2, Sports Blitz Pittsburgh. Riggs Tamburo, Rudy Reyes. Hope everybody is doing great today, guys. We are back with episode number 2, and today we are talking a little bit of Paul Skenes. Everybody knows that name is hot in the Pittsburgh Pirates world. Justin Fields, will he be the guy? Is he worth the money? Will the fan base be happy if he is the guy? We'll talk about that in just a few minutes. And then obviously got to get on over, talk about those Pittsburgh Penguins, Rudy, which as of right now, my man, not so hot, and a couple other things for you guys before we get out of here. So with no further ado, let's jump on in here and talk about this new Paul Skenes pitch that he's bringing out the bag. If you guys are only listening on Spotify, we do have this clip on our YouTube channel at the Sports Forum if you can't see the screen. But we are going to go ahead and play this little clip of Paul Skenes throwing this ball. You see the batter's reaction. You see the pitch. Rudy, please let me know, my man, your thoughts on this brand new cutter.
You just fall in that kind of a slump. You just get these bad habits. You're pressing.
One more time for the people.
You just fall in that kind of a slump, and you just get these bad habits.
Thoughts on that one?
That is beautiful. I must say, his ability to add another tool to his shed. Now, you think about the four-seam fastball, the sinker, the curveball, the sweeper, the slider, the changeup. Is this too much for Paul Skenes, or maybe is it too much for Paul Skenes? No, he's not going to be, and we don't know this, the jury's still out. Of course, we're in a new season, won the 2024 Rookie of the Year award. But look at that cutter. That is so silky smooth. The way that he gets that ball on the inner part of the plate, it just looks natural to him. Does he need it? Probably not. Could he use it in his arsenal, adding another tool to the toolbox? No question. Why? Because he is just that versatile. He's just that kind of guy. He has the ability to just get things done. He had 3 innings pitched. He had 4 hits. There were only 4 Ks, 2 bases batted in, 54 pitches in total, and he put that within the mix. So I don't think it's too much for him. I mean, look at his ERA from last year. Look at it against Jose Fernandez. Look at it against Mark Fidrich, right? He had the lowest ERA amongst all of those guys, which are absolutely phenomenal. The way that he was able to put that ball on the inner part of the plate to get that batter to really think that was going to be a four-seam fastball, or maybe just a straight forward shot, was sadly mistaken. He ended up last year with a 1.96 ERA in 2024. That says a lot about his skill set, his mindset, his ability to add another weapon to his box. It just makes him that much more dangerous. I like the new addition. Will he use it very often? I guess we're going to have to find out. If you tune into Pirates baseball happening at the park, you'll see it at PNC for yourself to see how well he can maneuver that. And we were talking off air a little bit, Riggs, in regards to what that could look like. Could that be a filthy pitch for him? It could be. It has the tendency to do that because of how it floats off of his fingers on the inner part of that plate towards the hitter, making the hitter believe that ball was going somewhere else. It just looks like it could be nasty and filthy, and that's exactly what pitchers love other than raking. So this is going to be another tool in the shed for him to use when he's ready to do so.
And you talk about how often he's going to use the pitch, and I'm kind of right there with you on, will it be a lot? Will it only be once, every third batter we see him use it in a big time moment, something like that? I could see it, but I also love what you're talking about and the fact that when the ball's coming, it kind of looks fastball to me. Like when it's coming off, it sure looks like it's kind of low and in, and maybe you're going to go, maybe you're not. And all of a sudden at the last second, it's going to get a lot of guys out there. A lot of guys are going to be guessing. My only question for you is, you talk about his 1.96 from last year, and it's a phenomenal ERA. And we know his power and his speed is why he's so good and all these different things. Do you believe that they're adding this pitch for the predominant fact that at the end of the day, fastball can only be thrown so many times before it gets figured out?
Again, it's hard to say. I don't know if it's something that he created. Maybe it was something that the skipper created. Maybe it was just something he was tinkering with in the offseason while he was pitching, while he was practicing, and kind of like a preclusion to warming up, if you will. I think this is more about him just diversifying what he does on the mound to get those wins. And again, the opportunity could present itself a lot sooner than later. And again, looking at that pitch, it just looks so sweet on the inner part of the plate. The batter can't believe he actually threw that because he's expecting something else. When you face a guy in rubber match series throughout a regular season, especially in the AL Central, you think to yourself, man, is this going to be the way that it's going to be, or the NL Central rather? So is this going to be, and that could be for any part of the AL or the NL. But the fact alone that you see this guy on a regular basis, especially in the NL, where you think he's just going to throw those balls, beware, buyer beware, because he could easily throw that and make you believe that that ball is going on the outside because of the way it leaves his hands. That's the way that you can probably cue it up. But because of the variations of pitches that he already has, I don't know. Could this be too much? We're going to have to find out. But I like it. I think it's a great part of his rotation. But the minute his body starts wearing out a little bit, because it's really taxing, right? So now you're adding a different motion altogether. You're moving an arm that's going all the way back, all the way forward, but with a little touch and a little spin to get that ball off your fingertips to get on the inner part of that plate. That's going to be interesting to see if his physicality breaks down, or if he loses control of that cutter. That could be and essentially go right over the plate, or maybe an infield single. So we're going to have to watch this. I can't wait to see it, maybe even in person, and we'll see what this pitch will do for him, what it'll do for the Pirates, excuse me, especially if you expect for him to pitch 5 or 6 innings, and will that ball be used in the very last pitch he throws? We'll see.
Right there with you. Definitely got to see him in person. That's a must do for me this season. Absolutely. Hopefully more than once. I mean, I better see him more than once for sure out here in Pittsburgh. But the one last thing I want to leave you with there, guys, just to touch on what Rudy said, is the point of will he get tired? Will the arm wear out, et cetera, et cetera? We saw a couple times last year, and a lot of people were betting on Paul Skenes for X amount of strikeouts and all these different things. And, we saw a lot of times 5th, 6th inning, and, the skipper's kind of asking him, hey, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? And he was kind of saying, I'm good. I'm done. I'm good on that. And some people were like, why? Like, is he scared to give up the big thing? Is he protecting the ERA? Is it a nerves thing? What is it? And I think it's kind of what you mentioned. I think it's that when you start throwing 100 miles an hour that often, bro, you get tired. And now you add another cutter in there. I'm right there with you. Could this maybe make him, instead of a 7-inning pitcher, a 5.5, 5 2/3 pitcher? I guess we're going to see here. So a lot of stuff to see, guys, but some exciting stuff coming out from Paul Skenes. Once again, check out that new cutter. You can find it in all different places on YouTube or Twitter. Make sure to go check it out. It's a pretty cool pitch. But Rudy, in the Pittsburgh Steelers world, my man, there are some question marks right now. And I want to start with the wide receiver room question before the quarterback question, because there's a lot of veteran wide receivers right now and one rookie we'll talk about here in just a minute. But the veteran right now that's hot on the market, rumor has it, in the last 48 hours, the Pittsburgh Steelers have made their phone call, and they have talked to the Seahawks about this move. DK Metcalf wants out in Seattle, and Pittsburgh is being named one of those places, along with every other player in the world, where he might go. What's your thoughts on this one? Would you like to see DK Metcalf in the black and gold?
Well, I'm going to start by saying this. They're asking a lot. They're asking for a 1st and 3rd round pick. That is not easy sledding. The Steelers do have a 1st round pick, but it's latter. It's in the 20s. So they're going to have to consider whether or not, because you have to have a wide receiver who's going to catch the ball from, could it be Justin Fields? Could it be, maybe even Russell Wilson, as at least likely as I think that's going to happen. Who's that? Who's he going to catch the ball? Jackson Dart, maybe. DK Metcalf is a very large target. If there's an acquisition made to give up a 1st round and a 3rd, that's going to be tough sledding, because you look at his numbers from last year against Seattle, and they didn't look very good. But then again, look at the quarterback trying to get the ball to him. So it didn't look as though there was any consistency from the quarterback position there in Seattle. Against the Rams, as an example, he threw 3 receptions, five targets, 53 yards. It was kind of minuscule. I mean, he did have a touchdown, but nothing really popped out of the screen at me. And don't forget, he's 27, so he's closer to the 30 year mark of being on the outside looking in regards to wide receivers. He's been in the league for quite some time. But where I see him fitting in red zone packages for Pittsburgh, if they can get there, and hopefully they do, outside of who the quarterback's going to be, which we're going to talk about in a minute.
Shots fired.
I think yeah, a little inspired by who the quarterback's going to be, which could be the ultimate for DK Metcalf if he can get a very athletic, which checks the box for Justin Fields. Up and coming, does he have a high ceiling? He's kind of a mid-ceiling guy in Justin Fields, but I think DK Metcalf could be acquired. Now, he's not a free agent. This is an acquisition, just to be clear. This is Seattle Seahawks shopping DK Metcalf around. He's been in contact with at least 2 other teams and probably every other team in the NFL looking for a wide receiver who's almost a shutdown kind of guy. No, he wasn't happy in Seattle. He didn't like being in Seattle. I don't even know if he wanted to get drafted by Seattle, but that's where he found himself. He's a big target. He has great hands, very, very physical guy, large upper body, very athletic. And so there's a lot to like, a lot of upside. He has a very high ceiling, but couldn't find that in the Seattle Seahawks system for the time that he was there. So again, it's codependent on the quarterback situation, which we're going to talk about momentarily. But I think DK Metcalf is a guy that could make a difference in red zone opportunities for Pittsburgh, or that deep threat guy with a deep threat type of mentality. Once he gets that ball, it's almost like Derrick Henry hard to get him down to the ground because it's going to take more than 2 guys to tear him down.
This is a tough one for me. I can't call myself a Seattle Seahawks fan, but I do support the team. I do like the Seahawks. I like to see them win. I was always a Pete Carroll guy, and I feel like I've watched quite a bit of DK Metcalf, and some people call him a diva, but I'll be honest with you. When I think about guys like George Pickens and the T. Higgins thing going on right now and all the guys over there in Cincinnati with Jamar Chase, and like there's a lot more divas out there, in my opinion, than guys like DK Metcalf. I think he's a guy who knows he's in his prime. You're mentioning it. He's at that 27 number. He's starting to be like, hey, like the time is now. I need to go get one right now. And he's at that point where he's got Geno Smith. That was kind of a question mark. Will they bring Geno? Will they won't? Well, let me tell you, my brother, if you don't like teams that have some quarterback issues, you might not want to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. So let's just go ahead and throw that out there. If you're looking for a guy to throw you dimes every route, we don't necessarily have that right now. So you're going to have to be okay to kind of fit into the system. Also, you mentioned his big frame and everything like that. One thing I think we've been missing for a long time, and I know George Pickens has kind of taken over the role of like the one-on-one guy, making these great catches backwards, one-handed, all these things. At the end of the day, red zone threat, he's not DK Metcalf. You can say whatever you want, but in a one-on-one coverage, I take DK Metcalf almost every single time before I will take George Pickens personally. Now, if you want to argue that, hey, go ahead, folks. But I just think DK Metcalf is a harder guy to cover. Rudy mentioned how hard he is to bring down. I can't say the same about George Pickens. So I love the move for Pittsburgh, but I want to ask you, let's talk guys like DK Metcalf. Now let's throw another name in there. Cheaper guy, on the age issue, more of a quick slot, fast speed guy. What do you think about a guy like Cooper Kupp versus DK Metcalf?
I like Cooper Kupp. He's more of a slant wide receiver. He's more of a guy that you can put in maybe a tight end, bunch set to make it, to make defenses believe and buy into the fact that he's going to be that blocker, but he's not. He's a guy that will get out. He'll cut in, he'll cut out. He has great hands. He has great ball awareness. That's more of like a one-hit wonder type of situation where you find yourself deep in your part of the field. If you throw that ball there to him, granted, we don't know what quarterback that's going to be, but predominantly, generally speaking, you're going to get it to guys like Cooper Kupp. Very athletic. He has great leap capabilities. He's a very smart football IQ guy. I don't know if that's spoken enough, especially in National Football League, where you get a guy who has a high football IQ. He's certainly able to put himself in position, get into positions where first down yardage is either short or right on time. So I do like the Cooper Kupp conversation. The question is what's that going to look like from a cap standpoint? Of course, free agency is what it's all about, right? What you can afford, what will push your team over the top and get you to win that Lombardi. We've seen it last year with Philadelphia when they put all their chips in offensively with a variety of stars. Saquon Barkley, clearly getting a new contract in Philadelphia, a 2-year deal. So, I mean, look, the running back era is back. It just is. And if people are shooting on that, they're missing the boat on it. So from a wide receiver perspective, which is the situation the Steelers have right now, they certainly need to look at all options that are on the table, clearly, and including the NFL draft, which there are a ton of guys ready, and whether or not they're capable remains to be seen, but they are available. We'll just find out what the positioning is, and the Steelers will pick in the 20s. And, there are some notable guys there, to be honest with you. You look at guys like Egbuka, out of Ohio State. There's a lot of guys he's being compared to. Jackson Smith-Enigma is a guy who he's, being kind of modeled after in the sense of playmaking capabilities, athleticism, football IQ, hit separation ability, and smooth route running. He doesn't have a lot of, massive jump cuts and things of that nature. But I mean, guys like Chris Olave, who came out in 22, Wilson in 22, Jackson Smith-Enigma, before mentioned, came out in 23. Marvin Harrison has just been absolutely outstanding prior to injury for Arizona in 24. So look, Ohio State knows how to make them. It's just whether or not the right NFL team will take them and get them to the next level. Now, there are other guys that are out there. Of course, we know Travis Hunter will probably go 1, 2, maybe 2, maybe even 3, depending on what list.
I've seen him all the way back to 5. I've seen him back to 5.
Yeah. See, well, there you go. See, draft stock can slip because somebody said the wrong thing, or maybe they don't know the full story, and you have hyperbole, kind of rolling around. So he's a very, very unique character. Clearly we know that Ibuka is not that guy, but we do know that he does have capabilities. And I believe, based on my understanding, based on what I've seen a film from him during last season with Ohio State, he certainly meshes well, and the Steelers know what they're doing out of Ohio State, especially when it comes to defensive linemen, Cam Hayward being one of them. So what they'll do on the wide receiving aspect, that remains to be seen, but they need a stockpile of these wide receivers to rule out who will fit and who will not.
Now, the 21st overall pick, do you believe a guy like Egbuka is going to be there at 21? Because I believe if this guy's there at 21, I don't know how, if they don't go after the Cooper Kupp or the DK Met, I don't know how they don't make that move. I mean, there's not many other guys at 20. I'm looking at the board between 18 and 23 that I think he's got to be one of my top names in that list that I'm looking at going, that's the kind of guy you need to bring in. We just talked about DK Metcalf. The guy is asking for upwards of 30 million or more per year. Rudy, we're Steelers guys. We've seen it. We don't pay that for people. We don't pay anybody $30 million. We pay Russell Wilson $1 million and Justin Fields $1 million. Okay. Like the Broncos paid him $40 million. Now, once again, they kind of shared the contract, so whatever, but you feel me. Like, they don't like to pay guys. That's why they always bring in these older, on the far 32, 33 side of their career wide receivers. They don't like to pay the money. Now, maybe that's their problem. Maybe they need to pay $30 million for DK Metcalf. But when you can get DK for $30 million a year for at bare minimum 3 years, I'm thinking he's looking for 4 years, 120, 80 guaranteed. That's what he's probably looking for. Would you rather see a guy like Emeka come in as a rookie, prove himself, and not cost us from go? Because we've talked about the line, we've talked about the rush. Like, there's some other things on this team right now, safety, linebackers, that this team needs to work on before they go spending $30 million on one player.
That's going to be the tail of the tape. This team is not known for paying money. I mean, okay, look, in all fairness, let's look at the organization like this. Their rates, the way that they're being rated right now as an organization, they're getting minuses and maybe small pluses in regards to their locker room, their sleeping quarters, the overall care of the facility, the workout area. They're not getting very high grades, one of the poorest grades. So the question is this: is ownership ready to spend an upwards amount of money, essentially, in order to right the wrongs of the ship? You have all these new stadiums with new facilities, and they're great and wonderful, and they're shiny and they're clean and they're new. That's the problem. The stuff in the Steelers facility is not new. It is aging. It is old. Will ownership step up along with the other owners as a part of the Steelers organization to say, we need to step up our game. We need to make this better for our players. We need to make, boost the morale. We need to do something more than what we've been doing because we haven't won a Super Bowl in a very, I'll say a very long time from my perspective. So they need to right the ship. They need to do what they need to do from an organizational standpoint, clean up that locker room, make it cleaner, make it newer. I don't care if you slap some paint on it and call it a piece of licorice, whatever you need to do to get this team and the morale and the winning ways that help this team become the first 6 Super Bowl winning Lombardi era franchise NFL organization to be what it is today. You need to invest money and a lot of it. So when it comes to money, when it comes to getting draft picks and players and what that looks like, look, the NFL gives money to draft players. This isn't just all on the organization. And I don't think people understand that too much in the sense of the NFL gives teams money in order to draft these players. Now it's a slow draw, whatever you want to call it, but to get Ibuka in there, that's probably more of a priority than go grabbing a guy who, I don't know, is on the wrong side of heading to 30, to be perfectly honest with you. 28, 29, and then he turns 30. Now you can throw in some extra monies in there, some incentive dough. If he gets so many career yards, if he gets touchdowns, things like that. Incentives will go a long way with players. I just don't think that spending that kind of money for DK Metcalf headed towards the age of 30 is the way to go, to be perfectly honest with you, especially not a first. And certainly not a third. If you want to take a 4th round, maybe a 4th and 5th round pick, okay, maybe, big maybe. But you want to spend that money on youth. But with that, and then you still have to answer the question about who's going to be your quarterback. That is so much up in the air. I don't have even a remote idea who they could grab in free agency, other than maybe Sam Darnold, who's looking pretty good right about now. His phone's not blowing up. I don't know that Minnesota's going to re-sign him for any kind of money they'd like to, but you know how that goes. You get new players, new ideas, new concepts. You're kind of out with the old, in with the new. And besides, we've seen what Sam Darnold was not able to do last year in a playoff run that looked so promising for Minnesota. He ended up failing miserably because maybe he's seen ghosts when he was drafted. Maybe those ghosts came back to revisit him that seen him originally when he was drafted by the New York Jets. I don't know. I'm just saying that this is where
he got exposed, bro. He got exposed. Bad. Nobody wants him. I'm sorry. I don't want him. I don't want him in Pittsburgh. I'm sorry.
You know what? I just don't think that he's the best fit for the Steelers. And I don't think that to be honest with you, I don't think that Kirk Cousins is. And we talked about this last time. Aaron Rodgers, because of his mental case, I don't see it. I don't feel it. And I definitely don't want him in Pittsburgh. I'll take Sam Darnold over Aaron Rodgers in Pittsburgh any day on the week and twice on Sunday. Wow. And that's just the way it is, because we know Aaron Rodgers is going to look for a multi-year deal. He's going to have his therapist on the sideline to throw a little zen if the game's not going his direction, bark at the media. Yep. Nobody wants to deal with that. Media doesn't want to deal with the organization, doesn't want to deal with the head case. I think that's just what Aaron Rodgers will actually bring you.
There's a lot of questions there at quarterback as well, and we'll get into that here in just 2 seconds, guys, about Justin Fields. But just to top off the whole wide receiver thing, once again, DK Metcalf, Seahawks looking for a first and a third. DK looking for $30 million plus a year. We're thinking at least 3 years, maybe upwards of 4 or even 5. You never know. It's one of those things where if he does go somewhere for 5 years, he's not going to be there for more than 3 years. Then he's going to wash out. Shout out to my boy over there in New York. I don't want to talk no crap because I know he's available too, but there's a lot of wide receivers right now that are guys that have been worth a lot of money before that at this moment just don't feel like they're worth that much money, but they still want it. My last question for you, Rudy, from wide receivers, though, is about what's going on with another Jets wide receiver, Garrett Wilson. Second best odds is to be a Pittsburgh Steeler, only 24 years old, former offensive rookie of the year. Also, though, looking for $30 million plus per year right now. Is that a guy you would give $30 million to?
I would give that money to him over Devontae Adams if you really want to have that conversation, only because
What
he
about
has.
DK
Yes, because of age.
though? Ooh,
Purely because of
okay.
age. It has nothing to do with athleticism, has nothing to do with his desire to win, has nothing to do with what these guys bring to the table. Why? Because Garrett Wilson did it in New York. Now, I interviewed Garrett Wilson when he was drafted in Las Vegas. And one thing that I did notice about him is that he is a stand-up guy. He's a forward progressive thinker. He refines his craft. He works on it well. He knows what he's doing. And to be honest with you, he would be a much better fit than Devontae Adams or even DK Metcalf, especially in that Steelers wide receiver room, to be perfectly honest with you. Although I will say that there are other free agents that will be, obviously cut here in the next day or so, who will be available at least to have a conversation with, not necessarily sit down and sign a contract, but to sit down and at least have a conversation. I think the Steelers may entertain those conversations. The problem that I see is that they're entertaining more NFL prospects than they are conversation, at least from my understanding, conversations with players around the league that are about to get cut, or at least have been given a notice that they're not going to be refinanced for the next 1, 2, or 3 years. So Steelers, you look, then the way the NFL is trending, we talked about this last week in the sense of teams are only going to be one-hit wonders. Players are going to be one-hit wonders. This is a 1-year deal worth $2 million, 2.5. This is not an astronomical, year for a lot of teams who find themselves, even though the cap was raised, they have other places they want to put those resources. So signing, would-be wide receivers that could potentially, with high ceilings and high football IQs, tons of money, and throwing at them to see if they're going to catch it and or stick to their hand, that's probably not going to be the case. They want to invest in younger talent, and it happens every single year because someone's looking down your locker. They're looking down your shirt to see if you're sweating bullets, to see if you're the guy who's going to be basically careened out of the offense. We've seen it happen to, guys who had played fantastically for the Steelers specifically. Hines Ward reminds me of a guy who was played out of the offense because Bruce Arians didn't want him to, make certain catches. And ultimately he was phased out of the offense. He knew it. He knew his time was coming as well. Sadly, still not on the ballot for a Hall of Fame, which is quite a shame, at least in my opinion.
My favorite player of all time. I'll say it to the grave, brother. I can't believe it. But, whatever. It's all good.
He'll get there eventually.
Here's the thing. Garrett Wilson, I do agree with you on the fact that, if you watch all the Hard Knocks and everything, I've never seen anything bad really about Garrett Wilson. I know he had his couple of weeks of being a diva a little bit because he was butthurt about everything going on, but I understand. He's the young dude who's waited his time, and he's like, whoa, don't bring Devontae in here. Don't start making him a wide receiver 1 or nothing. I'm the dude. Don't get it twisted. He kind of got butthurt about that, which I think is another reason why he's like, you know what? Get me out of here. I'm done with it. I've given everything I can to the New York Jets. I don't feel like they give it back to me. I want to get out of here. Now, I don't know talent-wise, and like you mentioned, athletic-wise, he's not DK Metcalf, in my opinion. I don't think he's as good. Prime Garrett is not going to be prime DK, in my opinion. But like you mentioned, if you're going to give a guy 4 years from 24 to 28 years old for $30 million, that makes a lot more sense than 27 to 31 for $30 million there. So also, can you imagine Garrett Wilson on one side, George Pickens on the other side? You got a problem now for defenses to pick who's taking the double coverage, who's taking the extra safety over the top, who's not. You leave one of those two dudes in single coverage. I think we might start moving some chains, Rudy. You made a joke earlier. Can we get to the end zone? I think we can if we have those two guys lined up. So I agree with you. Of the vets right now, Cooper Kupp, DK Metcalf, Garrett Wilson. Wilson's probably the best move, but will Pittsburgh spend $30 million? Only time will tell, guys. We will see about that one. Rudy, getting, though, to that Justin Fields conversation there. We talked about it a little bit last week. And I guess my question for you this week is still along the Justin Fields line, but instead of how me and you feel, I want to know how you believe the Steelers fan base will feel if Justin Fields is announced as the QB1, because I've seen so many people that are going to war for Justin, and that's our guy, and he should have been our guy, and all these different things, right? And then you see the other side of people kind of like you who go, look, did you watch? He didn't move the chains great. He didn't get into the end zone great. He got pulled out by Tomlin for a reason. That guy's not our future. He is a glorified running back playing quarterback. So there's just these two totally opposite sides. What is your take on the overall fan base? If we woke up tomorrow morning and it said Justin Fields QB1, happy, not happy?
I don't have a lot of this is tough. I have nothing but faith in Justin Fields. Now, it could be misplaced. It could be completely disoriented, and I could have maybe ate a mushroom or something that I probably shouldn't have. But when you look at Justin Fields, he does see the field. The problem is that navigating what that ball looks like headed down the field, his completion ratio to interception was fabulous. His completion ratio from the beginning of the season looked pretty dang good. But then here comes the Russell Wilson narrative. Did Russell Wilson give you a better opportunity? Okay, maybe. But that slowly kind of dipped into obscurity because the Steelers found themselves out of the playoffs quicker than they found themselves inside of the playoffs. And it wasn't necessarily because Russell Wilson was not that guy. It's because the team, I don't think necessarily surrounded him and kind of pulled them into their for lack of a better term, their football bosom to say, hey, man, we got you. We're going to take care of you. We're going to see you scramble inside, outside the pocket. We're going to protect you. We got your back. I don't think that type of rally cry was heard by Russell Wilson, to be honest with you. I think it was heard by Justin Fields. And I take nothing away from Russell Wilson's Hall of Fame career. I have nothing negative to say about it whatsoever. The problem that I have with Russell Wilson is the fact that, at early on this past season, or the last football season rather, I believe this was a good and very, very good two-punch hit for both Russell Wilson to start or putting Justin Fields in, or maybe quarterback by committee, which we had seen them actually do as the latter part of the season. And and someone had stated, well, I see Justin Fields backing up Russell Wilson. I see Russell Wilson starting all the way. I thought to myself, no. It's not going to happen that way. Why? Because we don't know Russell Wilson's the status in regards to what his medical looks like. So here comes Justin Fields on opening day, right? Unlike baseball, I call it opening day. First day of the regular season in the NFL, right? It's opening day to me. I don't care what it is.
Come on, bro. It's opening day.
For the football fans, perhaps. But he was on the field. He did fantastically. I thought he looked pretty good, navigating the ball, getting the ball downfield. But he has a lot to work on. There are a lot of questions in regards to what his capabilities are for the Steelers, what he can do moving forward. Russell Wilson, 99% prone, will not be in Pittsburgh this upcoming season, because what the Steelers are going to do is they're going to find a way to make a trade out of this with someone. I mean, I know that he's kind of a free agent-ish right now, and of course, free agency is not open yet. For those that don't know, it's not quite open yet. It's a cut day. It's a cut day for a lot of teams, and teams are doing their cuts accordingly. You've seen Washington Commanders do it, but we've seen other teams re-sign their players with extra money, like we mentioned Saquon Barkley earlier. So there's so much to unpack in regards to the cuts. In regards to additions, we don't know what that's going to look like. So when it comes to who's starting under center for the Steelers, it would not surprise me to see Justin Fields start under center for Pittsburgh. Why? Because I don't think he's hit that major ceiling yet. He's a mid-ceiling guy. Whether or not he has a football IQ, that remains to be seen, because IQ would dictate he's going to get the ball down the field continuously and into the end zone, which we did not see a whole lot of. So, and Chris Boswell cannot kick 9 field goals in a game and expect to win. I'm sorry, it's just not going to happen. So there's a lot of questions. I say go into the draft, use that second round or the first round late pick. It's going to be tough. I don't know if they use it on a quarterback, to be perfectly honest with you, but because of the carousel that the Steelers have had since Ben Roethlisberger retired, it's been Mason Rudolph. We've seen this story unfold so many times before, where this quarterback carousel continues to develop, and it's quarterback by committee, and Tomlin's thinking, just do me right, man. Just do me right. Well, none of these players can find the end zone. Russell Wilson did on quite a few occasions. He didn't look too bad, but he didn't manage the game the way that he needed to because the team didn't rally behind him.
And I don't mean to cut you off here, but I do want to throw one thing out there. You were talking about the quarterback carousel. What would they do? Will they take a quarterback or not? I think you hit it on the head last week when you said Jalen Milroe, late second round, could be a guy that falls, could be a Jalen Hurts type of comparison there, can throw the ball, maybe a bit of a better runner, obviously younger than Justin Fields, better arm than Justin Fields. That could be a very, very serious option. I don't see him on very many draft boards going in the first round, pretty much anywhere from any of the big time names out there. His second round, third round, fourth round, I've seen him. I'm thinking, late second round, he's still sitting there. I'm Pittsburgh. I might be making a phone call at that point to go get Jalen Milroe, because to me, the only argument is, well, he's just like Justin Fields. Well, he's cheaper than Justin Fields. We could start there. He's younger than Justin Fields. And like we just mentioned, he kind of does the things that Justin doesn't do that great, just a little bit better than him. So I also want to just really quick throw in there. You mentioned Justin Fields being the guy week one and everything. And we all know that's because Russ was hurt. And then he comes in and people go, well, why'd they put Russ in? Because Tomlin made the promise, or whatever the narrative might be. The thing that was a little bit telling to me, and I love Justin Fields, is the fact that they never went back. They never went back. And when everything was falling apart and it felt like the ship was sinking and Russ was getting all the whatever, and you kind of mentioned it. It looked like, come week 15, week 16, we were seeing dudes, walking past Russell kind of, hey, F you, bro. Get out of my way, bro. Get out of my way, bro. Like they didn't want to be out there with him come that late season. Kind of remind me of the Broncos a little bit. They never went back to Justin Fields. They didn't sit there in the playoff game at halftime and go, you know what? We got to do something. So let's just make Justin the starter, put Russ's ass on the bench, and let's just rock with it. They never really went back. And that's also telling to me, if they were never going to go back to that guy, what makes me think that he's going to be the future of them moving forward that they trust? I don't know. I think they're struggling because deep down, they don't trust this guy, and they don't think he's worth 3 or 4 years, $30+ million a year. They clearly don't think he's worth it. So
no, and that's where you put Justin Fields in. You have to give him the opportunity and the variety of opportunities to find out what he's capable of doing on the field. Again, but there are more questions in regards to that. Once you put him on the field, is he going to be able to put the ball in the end zone? Did wide receivers come open as often as he could have? Did he get the protection up front like he needed? The offensive line always has been in question. Dan Moore is a free agent. Not that Dan Moore was next best thing to sliced bread, because he wasn't. But when it comes to protection, when that breaks down, who has your back? Who's going to block for you? So I think Justin Fields has more of the capabilities of being able to rally the guys around him to help back him up and support him. But the bigger question is with that comes the capacity to understand that these guys are blocking for you. They're putting their butts on the line. Are you going to be able to get that ball downfield, or are you not? And I think he has to answer that call. And I mean consistently, not just because he's on the field, because I've been named the number one QB starter. No, we're here to win football games. If you're not here to win, then you're out. And at that point, you're going to lose. End of story. And I think Russell Wilson is a guy who was set up to fail because the team didn't rally behind him. Maybe because they're too young. Maybe because Russell Wilson was missing a step here and there, which he was. He lost multiple snaps and fumbled the ball. Russell Wilson, as I said it before, is not the same guy that he was even before he became a Steeler, before he ever became a Denver Bronco player. He was out the minute Seattle decided to cut him. So it does not surprise me at all whatsoever to see the team move on from Russell Wilson, get Justin Fields, go in the third round, grab Jalen Milroe if he's still there in the third, and or move up into the second round if he's still there, and grab that guy. You have to be able to, as an organization, you have to stop this carousel from turning, unplug it at the source, shut down the generator, pour some coffee in it, do something. Because if you don't do it, you're one and done in the playoffs again. And how many times have we seen this narrative unfold for the Steelers? Too many times.
And Tomlin's only going to last so long, brother. I go to war for him every year, but at the end of the day, how long can we go to war for this guy before people are like, that's it, bro. War done with you. So, all right.
Try for me,
yes or no?
Argentina. Don't do it. Don't come at me with your 500, bro. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it from nobody. It's 500 is not going to get you to a Super Bowl. Okay. So everybody needs to calm down. Let's focus on one thing at a time. Let's get the draft out of the way. Let's get free agency out of the way. Let's see what Tomlin can do during a regular season game with Justin Fields under center, Jalen Milroe backing him up with a clipboard in his hand, and see what this team can actually do. They need offensive linemen as well. They need to beef that lineup. They did make a restructure sign. I believe Nate Holcomb had a re-signed contract, which freed up a lot of money for the Steelers, so they can go into free agency with some type of bargaining chip in order to find out, hey, we don't know who's going to be available, but we need to have something to show in our deck of cards here as to what we can offer someone who's going to come over in free agency. And those cuts are going to be huge. It's going to be offensive linemen. Mark my words. There are a lot of great offensive linemen in the draft. Make no mistake about it. But you got to get the best guy, the best available guy who's the free agent, who's a solid offensive lineman. There are quite a few names being thrown out there. Thuney's obviously been taken. He's done. He's off the board. Didn't do great in the Super Bowl for the Kansas City Chiefs, but because he was playing out of position, he's not that guy. So he's done it over with, but there are going to be more cuts. So watch out for that.
So many question marks right now, but Rudy, just to end this topic, yes or no, would the Steelers fan base be satisfied with Justin Fields as the QB1?
All stars aligned, all things being equal, I think so.
Okay. All right, guys. Well, you guys let us know, man. Go ahead and drop a comment below if you're watching on YouTube. If you're on Spotify, I believe you guys can comment on Spotify as well. So go ahead, leave us a comment. Let us know how you're feeling about Justin Fields being the guy. Would you be happy? Would you not? Man, oh man, like I mentioned, I've just seen so many mixed narratives of people saying yes or no to that question. But we are going to round things out here. Just another minute or two in the podcast, but we got to end it here with what's going on in the Metro Division over there in the NHL. Pittsburgh Penguins. Rudy, I see you shaking your head, my brother. That's exactly how this one feels right here. The Penguins, overtime loss, get beat down, overtime loss, overtime. It never, and tied with the Avalanche, 1-1, going into the third period, lose by 3. It just doesn't stop bleeding. This team right now, the bottom of the Metro, 24, 30, and 10 overall, minus 53 goal differential, 2-6-2 over the last 10 games, and 3 losses in a row. It doesn't get much more bleak than this, my brother. How you feeling overall? And I got to throw a question out there. Could this be the last year of Sidney Crosby as a Penguin, and maybe he decides to go somewhere to try to win one, before he calls it a career?
He could very well be. The Penguins are finding themselves in a very horrible situation. They continue to find themselves at the bottom of the Metropolitan, and it's not very surprising. They just can't seem to close out games when they need to, when they have to. And right now, I just think it's way too late. 64 games played, 24 wins, 30 losses. They're on the wrong side of 30, literally. They take on the Las Vegas Golden Knights tonight, and it doesn't look good for them either because the Golden Knights are on a roll. It's just something so sad to hear. And I was watching an interview with Sidney Crosby, and he just basically saying that these guys, no one's committing to help closing this thing out. Every single game has been lost by 1, lost by 2. Yep. You're tied at second intermission. You go in, you lose by 2. You're up in the first intermission, you lose by 1. There's really no answer. Sidney Crosby visibly frustrated in regards to how his team is just not playing together as a unit. And I don't blame him. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. This is the team that drafted him. This is the team he would live and die for, obviously outside of being a Canadian, But, the fact alone is that this team is just not favorable right now. They're not playing well. They get to play Minnesota day after tomorrow, and then they play the Golden Knights at home on the 11th of March. So, clearly they are suffering from travelitis or something because they're just not able to close the games out that they should have won. They could have won, but they didn't. So does Sidney Crosby see himself lastly in a Penguins uniform? I think what they probably should do at this juncture is shut Sidney Crosby down for the season, like completely. And I say that because they don't have a chance over any team, including the Flyers, who also find themselves near bottom of the list, who can still make a run. The Islanders pulled off a major trade today. Rangers, the Blue Jackets, you're not catching the Devils, the Hurricanes, or the Capitals. Capitals are like the creme de la creme right now, 40-14. So there's so much to dislike about how the Penguins are playing right now. They're losers of 3 in a row. 3 in a row. There's no team in the Metro has lost 3 in a row. None. Not one. So no one's going to shock me to say, well, the Penguins are going to win the playoffs. Well, no kidding. They don't have any plans. They don't even have any. It's like they don't have an identity. And when you don't have an identity and your name is only Sidney Crosby, you can't do everything. That's why you shut him down. Find out where he wants to play. If you can even re-sign him. And to be honest with you, if I was Sidney Crosby, why would I want to stay?
Because you're trying to retire a Penguin, and that's it. Because you love it. Like you mentioned, they draft you. They took a chance on you. They love you. But at the end of the day, how much longer fan base can we sit here and expect this guy to keep doing this for us when he could go be on all these teams that are making a run? The fact that Sidney Crosby's sitting in fucking Cancun next to me watching the postseason every single year, if I'm him, I'm getting tired of this, bro. It's like, dude, I'm out here like you mentioned, they're losing. They're having the lead. They're going in 1-1. They're going in 4-4. They're doing all these things, and then they're losing 6-5, 7-6. 4-3. Like, the offense is doing every single thing in their power, and they can't find a way. They're moving around goaltenders. The defense, I'm sorry, look atrocious. The power play kill looks atrocious. The power play actually looks decent once again because Sidney Crosby's on it. And outside of that, this team just looks lost. And you just pointed it out. I'm looking at the Islanders. I'm looking at the Flyers. Those are 2 teams right now that in a 7-game series, I'm taking both those teams to beat Pittsburgh every single time. They can't hang. They might have one good win. They might break this 3-game losing streak, 2-6-2. They might get a win, and then they're going to lose 3 more. That's just how they've been playing hockey all season long. It's very unfortunate. But, my man, we are going to go ahead and wrap up episode number 2. Anything else going on in any Pittsburgh sports that we didn't get to that you want to mention before we get up out of here?
You know what? I can't think of one. I think we touched a lot. I mean, you have the Riverhounds, I believe is their name, the professional soccer team there in Pittsburgh. I could be wrong about that, but they're starting to play, or they're gearing up to play. Outside of that, I can't really think of anything other than just bring an NBA team to Pittsburgh and call it a day. You have all these other great teams. Obviously not how the Penguins are playing this year, but everybody else is playing pretty darn good. Steelers kind of fell by the wayside. But you still have a lot of viable things going on. Pirate season is right around the corner. I hope to take a part at PNC at least in one game, a home game this season, and hopefully they win in this game in this season, with second season with Paul Skenes. But outside of that, no, I can't think of anything that I want to cover about it. But if there's anything I could say lastly, it'd say, let's go Bucks.
Let's go Bucks. And I do want to throw it out there. You were correct, my man. The Pittsburgh Riverhounds USL Championship is the league that they play in. They do play tonight against North Carolina. So that should be a fun one. Make sure you guys tune into that one. Make sure you get out to some Riverhound games. Go support the team. I know our Denver crew, they cover all the Colorado Rapids games, the Switchbacks games. Always a phenomenal time out there, guys. So if you haven't been out there to cover soccer, you got to get out there and go enjoy those games. But until episode number 3 next week, I'm Riggs Tamburo. That's Rudy Reyes. This is Sports Blitz Pittsburgh. We'll see you guys in the next one.